Birnam Wood. When Macbeth learnt that Macduff had escaped from his power and fled to England, he took a fiendish revenge. He gave orders that his castle in Fife should be surprised and seized, and his wife and children slain. Macbeth's barbarous commands were executed, and the Thane of Fife's wife, children, servants, and every unfortunate soul in the castle were ruthlessly slaughtered. Scotland had long been groaning under the heavy yoke of the tyrant, and at this cruel deed it broke into open rebellion. Macduff returned from England, bringing the young Prince Malcolm with him, and many noblemen flocked to their standard. Macduff, burning with revenge for the loss of all his dear ones, swore that if ever the tyrant came within reach of his sword, he should never escape alive. In the troubles that now gathered thick and fast around him, Macbeth had no longer the counsel of his devoted wife to strengthen him. The punishment of her evil deeds had fallen upon Lady Macbeth. Her stern spirit was broken, for she was a prey to all the tortures of unavailing remorse. Her sleep was troubled, and in her dreams she acted over and over again the scene that had taken place on the night of Duncan's murder. The doctor, called in to attend her, could not explain the cause of the illness that seemed consuming her, but her waiting gentlewoman told him that at night Lady Macbeth would rise in her sleep and speak strange words and act in a strange manner. The doctor resolved to watch himself to see what happened. For 2 nights all was quiet, but on the 3rd night, as he was speaking to the gentlewoman, Lady Macbeth entered, clad in a night mantle, and carrying a lighted taper. Her eyes were open, but she evidently saw nothing. She was walking in her sleep. Setting down the taper, she began to rub her hands as if she were washing them, speaking the while in a low voice. From her broken phrases, it was easy to guess the scene of guilt that was haunting her brain. Mixed with words about Duncan's murder, came reproaches to her husband for his lack of courage, and then references to other crimes. The murder of Banquo, and the death of the Thane of Fife's wife. And all the time, Lady Macbeth kept rubbing and rubbing her hands, but it was of no use. Nothing would ever make them clean again. "Here's the smell of the blood still. All the perfumes of Arabia will not sweeten this little hand," she moaned, as if her heart were breaking. "What a sigh is there," said the doctor. "The heart is sorely charged." "I would not have such a heart in my bosom for the dignity of the whole body," said the gentlewoman. "This disease is beyond my practice," said the doctor. "Yet I have known those that have walked in their sleep, who have died holily in their beds." "Wash your hands. Put on your nightgown. Look not so pale," muttered Lady Macbeth. "I tell you yet again, Banquo is buried. He cannot come out of his grave. To bed, to bed! There's knocking at the gate. Come, 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 give me your hand. What's done cannot be undone. To bed, to bed, to bed!" And with a gesture, as if she were dragging some invisible person reluctantly after her, Lady Macbeth took up her taper and slowly retreated. The strain of this unceasing remorse by day and night was too much even for Lady Macbeth's dauntless courage, and the days of her life were soon to be numbered. Macbeth himself was bordering on a state of frenzy. Some said he was mad. Others who hated him less called it valiant fury. Whichever it might be, certain it was that his excitement was beyond control, and that he could not direct his cause in a reasonable manner. Sick at heart, void of all hope, he yet summoned all his courage, and resolved to fight stubbornly to the end, like some savage animal brought to bay. The English troops, led by Malcolm and Macduff, were close at hand, and the Scottish nobles with their followers were to meet them near Birnam Wood. From here the combined forces were to march on Dunsinane Castle, where Macbeth now was, and which he had strongly fortified. Rumours of the enemy's might filled the air, but Macbeth, trying to reassure himself with the witch's prophecy, bade his people bring him no more reports. "Till Birnam Wood removed to Dunsinane, I cannot quail with fear," he declared. "What's the boy, Malcolm? Was he not born of woman? The spirits that know all mortal consequences have said to me thus, 'Fear not, Macbeth. No man that's born of woman shall e'er have power upon thee.'" So, when a white-faced, trembling messenger brought the news that 10,000 English soldiers were marching on Dunsinane, Macbeth silenced him with curses and abuse. But his momentary rage over, he fell again into dejection. "I am sick at heart," he said. "I have lived long enough. My way of life has fallen into the sere, the yellow leaf. And that which should accompany old age, such as honor, love, obedience, troops of friends, I must not look to have, but in their stead curses, not loud but deep, mouth honor, breath, which the poor heart would fain deny, but dare not." Then, shaking off his despondency in a fresh outburst of fury, he rallied his men, determined to make a most stubborn resistance, no matter what forces were brought against him. "I will not be afraid of death and bane, till Birnam Forest come to Dunsinane," he cried, once more falling back for comfort on the witch's prophecy. News again came to Macbeth of the near approach of the English, and that the Scottish nobles were flocking to the standard of the young prince. But he refused to be daunted. "Hang out our banners on the outward walls," he shouted. "The cry is still, they come. Our castle's strength will laugh a siege to scorn. Here let them lie till famine and the ague eat them up." In the midst of his warlike commands, a cry of women was heard within the castle, and the news was told Macbeth that the queen was dead. For a moment he was stunned. This, then, was the end of all their plotting and ambition. But now there was no time even to spend in grief. "She should have died hereafter," he said, with a bitter reflection on the vanity of human life. "There would have been time for such a word. Tomorrow, and tomorrow, and tomorrow creeps in this petty pace from day to day, to the last syllable of recorded time, and all our yesterdays have lighted fools the way to dusty death. Out, out, brief candle, life's but a walking shadow, a poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage, and then is heard no more. It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing." But his musing was interrupted. A messenger came hurrying up, his face full of terror. "Thou comest to use thy tongue, thy story quickly." The man sank on his knee before Macbeth. "Gracious my lord, I should report that which I say I saw, but know not how to do it." "Well, say, sir," said Macbeth impatiently. "As I stood watching upon the hill, I looked toward Birnam, and anon, methought, the wood began to move." "Liar and slave!" cried Macbeth, livid with fury, and striking the man to the ground. "Let me endure your wrath if it be not so," persisted the messenger. "Within these 3 miles you may see it coming, I say, a moving grove." "If thou speak false, upon the next tree shalt thou hang alive till famine cling thee," said Macbeth. "If thy speech be true, I care not if thou dost as much for me." His resolution faltered, and he began to doubt the falseness of the fiends that lied like truth. "Fear not till Birnam wood do come to Dunsinane," they had said. And now a wood was coming to Dunsinane. "Arm, arm, and out!" thundered Macbeth. "If this which he avouches be true, there is no flying hence, nor tarrying here," he thought, sick at heart. "I begin to be aweary of the sun, and wish the estate of the world were now undone." Then, with a sudden return of fury, "Ring the alarm bell, blow, wind, come, wrack. At least we'll die with harness on our back." The strange occurrence reported by the messenger was indeed true, but the explanation was simple. When the English and Scotch troops met near Birnam Wood, in order the better to conceal the soldiers as they marched to Dunsinane, Malcolm commanded that every man should hew down a leafy bough and bear it before him, thereby making it impossible that the number of their host could be discovered. From a distance, this mass of waving green boughs looked exactly as if Birnam Wood were advancing on Dunsinane. The first of the witch's safeguards had failed Macbeth, but he fell back with desperate reliance on the other. Besides, in any case, it was now too late to retreat. He must fight the matter out to the end, and either conquer or be lost forever. "They have tied me to a stake," he cried. "I cannot fly, but bear-like I must fight the course. What's he that was not born of woman? Such a one am I to fear, or none." In his furious fighting on the battlefield, he presently encountered one of the English leaders, whom he promptly slew. Macbeth laughed in triumph, for he felt himself secure. He feared no weapon brandished by any man born of woman. But the hour of fate was at hand. Macduff, scorning to strike the wretched peasants hired to fight, sought everywhere for Macbeth, determined either to slay the tyrant or sheathe his sword unused. And at last he found him. But Macbeth seemed to shrink from the furious challenge. "Of all men else, I have avoided thee," he said, "but get thee back. My soul is too much charged with blood of thine already." "I have no words. My voice is in my sword," returned Macduff. They fought, but for a while neither got the better. Then Macbeth told Macduff that he was losing labour, for it was as easy for his keen sword to hurt the air as to wound him. He bore a charmed life, which could not yield to one of woman born. "Despair thy charm," cried Macduff, and the next moment Macbeth knew that the witches had doubly deceived him, for his second hope had failed. Macduff proclaimed that his birth had been different from that of ordinary mortals, so that, in a way, he might be said never to have been born. "Accursed be the tongue that tells me so," exclaimed Macbeth, "for it hath cowed my better part of man. And be those juggling fiends no more believed, that palter with us in a double sense, that keep the word of promise to the ear, and break it to our hope. I'll not fight with thee." "Then yield thee, coward," taunted Macduff, "and live to be the show and gaze of the time. We'll have thee, as our rarer monsters are, painted upon a pole, and under writ, 'Here you may see the tyrant.'" His words goaded Macbeth's failing nerve to fresh fury. Desperate and despairing, he flung his final challenge at his foe. "I will not yield to kiss the ground before young Malcolm's feet, and to be baited with the rabble's curse. Though Birnam wood be come to Dunsinane, and thou opposed, being of no woman born, yet I will try the last. Before my body I throw my warlike shield. Lay on, Macduff, and cursed be him that first cries, 'Hold, enough.'" The fight was over, and as the victorious generals gathered on the field of battle, with drums beating and flags flying, Macduff approached, bearing the head of the slain Macbeth. and saluted the young Prince Malcolm as King of Scotland. "Hail, King, for so thou art. Behold where stands the usurper's cursed head. The land is free. Hail, King of Scotland!" And the trumpets sounded, and a universal shout rent the air. "Hail, King of Scotland!"